Chapter 669. Hearing this, Wang Debao felt very comfortable in his heart. For such an outstanding woman like Bai Cixin to feel comfortable for me, this is also a kind of pride. Wang Debao immediately hugged onto his wife's shoulder and said heroically, "Wife, buy whatever you want today." So generous. Bai Cixin tightly leaned onto her husband, her face brimming with happiness. If only we could continue living like this. Of course, you are my wife. If I don't spend money for you, who should I spend money for? Husband, I love you. After hearing that, Wang Debao felt very happy. In the past, my wife never said that, but now, after hearing that, I am willing to die. When the surrounding men saw how generous Wang Debao was, and then looked at that woman's happy look, they also wanted to imitate Wang Debao, but the money in their pockets, sigh, some of the men who brought girls to the mall felt awkward. Compared to that nouveau riche Wang Debao, they are really, on this night, the husband and wife played very happily. After shopping at the mall, they even went to eat supper, and even took a walk and chatted late at night. When they returned home, they were filled with endless passion. The golden retriever couldn't bear to watch anymore and hid in a corner while shivering. The morning sunlight is always so warm. Wang Debao rubbed his eyes, then seemed to have thought of something and immediately stretched out his hand to hug. When he touched that soft and tender body, Wang Debao let out a sigh of relief. I was afraid that Bai Cixin would run away without saying a word and bear everything by myself. Wife, it's already 8 a.m. Wang Debao shouted lightly. Bai Cixin hugged onto her husband's chest. Let me sleep for a while more. Didn't you say that you still want to go to the amusement park today? Wang Debao pinched onto his wife's nose. She is truly beautiful and cute. Let me sleep for another 5 minutes, I beg you. Wang Debao could only hug onto his wife tightly and enjoy the pleasant morning, because he might not be able to enjoy it anymore in the future. However, as long as he can be with his wife, it doesn't matter where he goes. 5 minutes later, Bai Cixin woke up. She is truly a woman who does what she said. Debao, Xiao Bao is taking a dump, quickly come and clean up. Oh, coming. The golden retriever was named Xiao Bao by the two. Wang Debao didn't mind, as long as his wife was happy, it was fine. After the two of them had breakfast at home, Bai Cixin brought Big Treasure and Little Treasure out. They were going to the amusement park today. This time, Wang Debao was in charge of driving. Bai Cixin held Xiao Bao and played with him. Xiao Bao, take good care of the house in the future, understand? If bad people come, bite them. The little guy was dumbfounded as he looked at his mistress. Wang Debao, who was driving, smiled. However, upon closer inspection, Wang Debao's smile was dry. Debao, I want to eat ice cream, hamburgers, and all kinds of snacks later, Bai Cixin said coquettishly. Wang Debao teased, why? Don't you need to lose weight? I won't reduce it. You won't despise me anyway. Who said that? I despise it. If you dare, I'll immediately run away from home with Xiao Bao. Ha! Bringing along a relaxed atmosphere, the husband and wife went to Happy Valley. Ever since the witch was eliminated by Voidless Realm, men dared to go to the streets to flirt with women. All of the entertainment venues in Happy Valley were filled to the brim. The men were venting out their gloominess, while the women were venting out their days without men. On this day, Wang Debao brought Bai Cixin to play with all kinds of things. Bai Cixin even went to ride on the merry-go-round. The heart of a young girl was truly bursting out. Meanwhile, Wang Debao took a photo of his wife's heartfelt smile onto his phone. I don't want to forget this woman for the rest of my life. In fact, in the next few days, the husband and wife went to all of the scenic spots around Gaohai City, leaving behind the happy laughter of the husband and wife at every place. Half a month passed by in the blink of an eye. During this half a month, Wang Debao was the happiest he had ever been. All of his worries were thrown to the back of his head, and he went to play with his beloved woman. Bai Cixin was the same as well. Although the time given to her husband was very short, it could be said that she satisfied her husband's request. The life of an ordinary person is truly good, there is no pressure at all, and I can do whatever I want to do, truly great, Debao, I have been very happy these few days. Bai Cixin leaned onto her husband's embrace and mumbled. Hearing that, Wang Debao paused for a moment, then asked, "Wife, do you like this kind of life?" "Yes." Bai Cixin truly liked this kind of life. "Then, can we continue living like this forever?" Wang Debao said with a pleading tone. "I really don't want my wife to walk into a dead end, why can't I just live a good life?" Bai Cixin rubbed onto Xiao Bao's head and said tenderly, "Debao, I have been chasing after something my entire life, and I might only stop when I am tired. I hope that you can bring Xiao Bao along and live a good life in the future." The real reason why Bai Cixin bought a dog was because she wanted her husband to have something to rely on, just like how when one sees Xiao Bao, one would think of herself. "Wife, living alone is not my style, we either live together or die together. On the road to hell, let's walk together." Bai Cixin's tears immediately flowed out from her eyes. "We will still be together in our next life." Wang Debao held onto his wife's hand tightly and said with certainty, "Not only in our next life, you have to accompany me in every life. And I will accompany you in every life." Bai Cixin said tenderly, and tears flowed down from her beautiful face. The husband and wife snuggled together for a very, very long time. Bai Cixin's gaze gradually became firm. "Let's go look for heaven and earth first." "All right." Wang Debao nodded his head. The husband and wife walked back to the bedroom and changed into a set of clean clothes. Looking at his wife who was dressed in white, Wang Debao laughed lightly and said, "I like seeing you like this the most." Bai Cixin laughed, then stood in front of her husband and adjusted her necktie. "I also like this handsome look of yours." The husband and wife looked at each other and smiled, then walked downstairs while holding hands. After changing into shoes, they walked out of the house. Woof, woof, woof. Xiao Bao chased after them all the way out, then obediently squatted at the entrance of the villa, seemingly waiting for the two owners to return home again. Bai Cixin slightly bowed and stroked Xiao Bao. "Little fellow, I'm sorry, we won't be able to take care of you anymore." Xiao Bao didn't understand what Bai Cixin was saying, and he wagged his tail, seemingly enjoying his owner's stroking. Wang Debao had already driven the car out, and he looked at his wife and Xiao Bao saying goodbye. Bai Cixin stroked Xiao Bao one last time, then turned around and got into the car. Wang Debao frowned and looked at Xiao Bao who was squatting at the entrance of the villa. "Perhaps Xiao Bao won't be able to wait for me and my wife to return home anymore." Lightly stepping on the accelerator, the husband and wife slowly left the house. Home is warm. But in the future, it might be cold. Woof, woof, woof. Chapter 670. Even dogs knew that a home with a master was perfect. Without a master, it wouldn't be a home. Wang Debao stepped on the brake, opened the door, and got out of the car. He held Xiao Bao in his arms before getting into the car. The little guy saw his master parking the car and even carried him. He was very happy that his master did not abandon him. "Xiao Bao can be Fingtian's companion," Wang Debao said softly. Bai Cixin nodded. At least she would have a place to return to. Half an hour later, the couple arrived at the towering villa, which used to be their own. Xiao Bao followed his master out of the car and arrived at this unfamiliar place. He was a bit vigilant and followed closely behind his mistress. Walking into the villa, Wang Debao was surprised to see the autistic Feng Tian pushing Qing Tiandi in his wheelchair for a walk. Qing Tiandi smiled when he saw Wang Debao and Bai Cixin. "Debao, sister-in-law, long time no see." Brother Qing, how are you now? Wang Debao walked up and asked. Heaven and earth pursed his lips. Isn't it the same? On the other hand, Qing Tiandi realized that the couple was acting strangely. What's going on? Bai Cixin exhaled softly and lowered her head to look at Xiao Bao. Feng Tian, this is the dog I bought. Can you help me take care of it in the future? Feng Tian looked at Xiao Bao, who seemed to be a little afraid and hid behind Bai Cixin's feet. What are you going to do? Feng Tian asked. Wang Debao laughed lightly. I will accompany my wife to Voidless Realm. Qing Tian's expression stiffened. You two are going to Voidless Realm. Yes, some things have to be settled. Bai Cixin nodded quietly. Do you all know the consequences of going to Voidless Realm? God raising heaven and earth muttered. God raising heaven and earth was truly surprised, but at the same time, God raising heaven and earth admired them a lot. There was only one outcome for going to Voidless Realm, and that was death. Brother Qing, we have decided to leave. We came here today to say our goodbyes, and also to entrust Xiao Bao. Wang Debao smiled. At this moment, his heart seemed to have calmed down. Qing Tian sighed softly. Why do you have to do this? To be honest, Qing Tiandi does have a good impression of this couple. Although they did some things behind my back, it was all for the sake of protecting themselves. This is understandable. Bai Cixin smiled gently and said, Brother Qing, actually, we still have to thank you. Thank you for taking care of us. Sigh, let's not talk about it. Sometimes I make mistakes. Why don't you stay for lunch? We're a team, after all, heaven raising heaven and earth said in a low voice. The couple didn't refuse and brought Xiao Bao into the villa. Feng Tian's expression was a little strange, as if he was struggling with something. Brother Qing, how about a family bucket? Wang Debao suggested. Qing Tiandi chuckled. Debao, I really admire you. What are you talking about? You're just being sloppy. Bai Cixin covered her mouth and giggled. She was really merciless in teasing her husband. Although she said that, Bai Cixin took out her phone and ordered takeout. Everyone sat on the sofa and watched the television quietly. As the doorbell rang, Wang Debao got up to get the takeaway. Eating fried chicken and cola, he felt like he had returned to the past. At that time, Xiao Yi was still there. At that time, Feng Di was still around. At that time, Chen Xuanzong was still around. Thinking back to the beginning, during that period of time, everyone was talking and laughing, but now, the meal passed by very quickly. The table was filled with bones, and even Xiao Bao was playing with the bones while gnawing on the bones. Burp. Wang Debao burped without any grace at all. Bai Cixin shook her head helplessly. However, she also liked her husband's straightforwardness. Letting out a breath, Wang Debao shouted out, "This meal is so satisfying." Qing Tiandi gradually became serious. Wang Debao, Bai Cixin, I hope that the two of you will be able to come back alive. I, Qing Tiandi, have very few friends, but today, I feel that the two of you are my friends. The couple went into a daze for a moment, but right now, they didn't have the mood to think about anything else. Brother Qing, you are also our friend. Qing Tiandi tightly wrinkled his brows. As your friend, I still want to advise the two of you, don't go to Voidless Realm and live a good life. Bai Cixin said tenderly, Brother Qing, thank you for your kind intentions. If it's possible, can you do me a favor? What is it? Help me capture Debao. I don't want him to accompany me to Voidless Realm. Wang Debao was very helpless. However, this time, he didn't get angry. Wife, unless Big Brother Qing is able to capture me forever, I will still go to Voidless Realm and take revenge for you. See Axian, you should be proud to have such a man. Debao, I, Qing Tian, admire you. You are a man. There was no need for Qin Tian to put on an act. They were already prepared to die. Wang Debao cupped his hands to express his gratitude. Honey, you'll never be able to get rid of me in this lifetime. Yeah, in the next life, I'll stick to you. The couple looked at each other and smiled, their fingers tightly clasped together. Feng Tian, I'll leave Xiao Bao in your care. Wang Debao called out to the dumbfounded Feng Tian. After which, he held his wife's hand and prepared to leave. Wait! Feng Tian suddenly shouted. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin turned to look at Feng Tian. Feng Tian slowly stood up and said in a deep voice, I'll go with you. Feng Tian's eyes were filled with determination as he said this. His previous gloominess was gone. It was as if the domineering Feng Tian from before had returned. What are you going to do? Qin Tian asked in confusion. Feng Tian clenched his fists tightly, I'm going to settle the debt. After finished speaking, Feng Tian went upstairs to change his clothes. When he came down, all the stubble on his face had been cleaned, and the golden mask on his face looked brand new. Feng Tian felt as if he had been reborn. Feng Tian was also influenced by Wang Debao and Bai Cixin. Both of them are not afraid of death, but I, a man, am not afraid of death. Even if I die this time, I will wash away the humiliation I suffered back then. After Feng Tian went downstairs, he directly stood outside the door and waited. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin took one last look at Qin Tian and Xiao Bao who was gnawing on a bone on the floor, then closed the door. Qin Tian sat on the wheelchair absent-mindedly. Looking at the food on the table and feeling the air around him, it seemed that the air had become cold. A few minutes ago, everyone was still eating KFC, and in just a few minutes, I'm the only one left sitting here. And we are going to die. Why are we so foolish? We clearly know that we are going to die, why do we still want to go? Why can't we be more rational and think of a way in the future? Bai Cixin had thought of all kinds of ways, but it was all useless. Meanwhile, Feng Tian is only going there for Yizizi. This time, even if I die, I will do my best. Perhaps, Qin Tian still hasn't realized a problem. Why, if it's for something, then there would be a reason for me to die. Chapter 671. Only then did Xiao Bao realize that his master had disappeared. He anxiously shouted and kept grabbing at the door, wanting to find his master. Wang Debao, Bai Cixin, and Feng Tian had already appeared outside of Voidless Realm's barrier. Thinking about how I am so close to Voidless Realm, Bai Cixin became very excited, and the blood in Bai Cixin's entire body started boiling. All of the hard work that Voidless Realm had put in over the years turned into bubbles with just a single sentence from Voidless Realm. Upon thinking about this, Bai Cixin immediately became furious. Voidless Realm, what right do you have to deny your own hard work? Just because your name is Voidless Realm. I, Bai Cixin, am not resigned to this. Wang Debao understood his wife very well. As a husband, he would definitely accompany her, even if it was the abyss of death. Feng Tian, who was standing at the side, recalled that day and felt humiliated. He was beaten up by a little girl and didn't even have the chance to avenge his brother. Today. If she didn't die, then he would die. I, Feng Tian, do not need your pity. In actuality, the reason why Feng Tian became autistic was because Yizizi had spared his life, and the look of disdain in her eyes was still vivid in his mind. Wang Debao took a deep breath, picked up a handful of sand from the ground, and threw it at the barrier. The yellow sand with spiritual chi collided with the barrier like tiny bullets, causing little ripples. However, this could also be considered as knocking on the door. Meanwhile, inside Voidless Realm, Yihua's family was currently having lunch. Qinya, I am very happy that your cooking has improved. While eating the dishes that Qinya cooked, Yihua gave a high evaluation. The corners of Yi Yan's mouth were covered in oil. He smiled and said, "Mom, Dad praised you. Right now, even the little fellows know that it is an honor to be able to receive Daddy's praise. Yen, be good and eat." Qingye patted her son's head and smiled. Yi Yan responded and began to eat fiercely. However, towards her husband's praise, Qingye was still very happy. My hard work did not go to waste. On the other hand, Dong Huangli's table manners were a lot more refined. However, Dong Huangli still said, "Mummy, you have to work hard. Mummy Qing has already received Daddy's praise, but you haven't." Dong Huang Baiji. Being teased by her daughter like that, Dong Huang Baiji felt depressed to death. However, speaking of which, I have to deal with voidless realms matters every single day, so where would I have the time to take care of my husband's daily life? From the looks of it, I have to pay more attention to this aspect in the future. What Li said is right. Baiji, you should properly reflect on your actions. Yi Hua said faintly. Dong Huang Baiji, this father and daughter pair were simply ganging up to bully others. They were too evil. Li, then who do you like, Mummy or Daddy? Dong Huang Baiji felt that she had to regain a bit of her confidence, and thought to herself, my daughter definitely likes me a bit more. Yi Hua shook his head. This Empress, sometimes, she is really stupid. Isn't this question just trying to trick me? Dong Huangli didn't hesitate at all. Of course, I like Daddy a bit more, and then Mommy. Dong Huang Baiji, blow, this blow is too much of a blow, haha. Yi Hua laughed out loud, causing Dong Huang Baiji to feel like crying. My daughter actually likes my father a bit more. It wasn't easy for me to take care of you. Qin Yutong was also lightly laughing while covering her mouth. These two little fellows are so cute. Big sister and big sister Baiji are definitely going to be depressed. Right now, the two of them are the ones who are following brother-in-law around. Seeing that Qin Yutong was secretly laughing, Dong Huang Baiji decided to change the focus of the conversation. Yutong, this year is going to be half over again. How are you going to solve the problem of that person of yours? The corner of Qin Yutong's mouth twitched. The Empress can't bully anyone but me. Brother-in-law, your wife is bullying me. Why aren't you saying anything? Of course, Yi Hua had to say something. Baiji, Yutong is still young, what's the rush? Qingye didn't think so. What do you mean by still young? In a few years' time, she will be 30 years old. Who would want her then? Even if I am 30 years old, I will still be the prettiest. Qin Yutong didn't care at all. It is good to have brother-in-law supporting me. Just as Qingye was about to properly teach her little sister a lesson, an imperial guard hurriedly ran over and said respectfully, "Reporting to your majesty, someone is destroying the barrier." Dong Huang Baiji's brows wrinkled. Someone is destroying the barrier again. Yi Hua waved his hand, and very quickly, an image appeared on the screen. Why are there so many people seeking death during this period of time? This is making me a bit annoyed. Very quickly, figures appeared on the screen. It's them. Yi Hua slightly wrinkled his brows. I didn't expect that it would be Wang Debao and his wife, as well as Feng Tian. Yi Hua had a good impression of Wang Debao. During the first time he came into contact with Wang Debao was the first one to return the money. Wang Debao was a man of his word. Yi Hua remembered that back then, Dong Huang Baiji expelled him from the north, and back then, Wang Debao came to look for Yi Hua, seemingly wanting to seek shelter with Yi Hua, but was rejected. If Yi Hua didn't remember wrongly, Yi Hua even received a carton of cigarettes from Wang Debao back then. Qingye was also very confused. Why did Wang Debao and Bai Cixin come to our place? There is also this Feng Tian. Qin Yutong had seen Feng Tian before. Back then, Feng Tian had consumed the blood demon. Dong Huang Baiji said gravely, since they came, there is definitely something going on. Back then, when I expelled my family from the north, it seems like they have some complaints. Yihua placed down the chopsticks in his hand and said indifferently, if they don't have any complaints even after that, then it would be strange. Qin Yutong held onto her chin, and a look of admiration could be seen in her eyes. This is completely seeking death. Or could it be that they knew that they would die, and so they still came as usual? Let's go out and take a look. I have quite a good feeling towards this Wang Debao. Yihua's meaning was very clear. Other than Wang Debao, the life and death of the others didn't matter to him. We want to go as well. Yi Yan shouted out while standing on the stool. Qinya glared at Yihua, obediently eat your food. After eating, go and take a nap. If I find out that you two sneaked out again, I will smack your butts. In this family, Qinya and Donghuang Baiji played the role of strict mother, while Yihua played the role of a loving father. The children would definitely like their father a lot. Yi Yan pouted his small mouth and ate his food quietly. To not even bring me and big sister to such fun things, I feel so depressed. After the parents left, Dong Huangli said in a low voice, Yan, don't worry, big sister will bring you out to have fun in the future. Really? Of course it's true, when did big sister ever lie to you? And big sister is the best. Yi Yan was very happy. I feel so fortunate to have such a big sister. At this moment, Yihua appeared outside of Voidless Realm's barrier with his 3 women. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin did not cower, and both of them looked at each other fixedly. Meanwhile, Feng Tian was very puzzled. Where is that little loli? Where is that little loli? Yihua first took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up, then asked faintly, why did you two come to Voidless Realm? If there is nothing, please go back. Chapter 672. I, the Supreme Overlord, am not a person who willfully slaughters the innocent. Furthermore, there is no sense of accomplishment in killing them. However, because of Wang Debao's face, I can let them off. This deity quite admires this man, he is trustworthy, completely different from Xiao Yi. I have something to do. Wang Debao said aloud. As a man, he couldn't be a coward at this time. Today, he had to get justice for his wife. Yihua's brows slightly wrinkled. I, the Supreme Overlord, very rarely persuade others, and the auntie's son is one of them. The auntie's son is also in a rather good mood today, which is why I said a few words to Yihua. Don't make me, the Supreme Overlord, impatient. Speak. Yihua asked faintly, and wisps of green smoke rose from the cigarette that was on the tip of his finger. Wang Debao held his wife's hand tightly and said in a low voice, we must seek justice from the Empress. Donghuang Baiji, who was standing at the back, paused for a moment. Seems like my guess is correct. Yihua let out a breath. Baiji, they are looking for you. Donghuang Baiji nodded her head, then took a step forward and asked, what kind of justice do you two want from me? Bai Cixin's eyes flashed with determination. She held her husband's hand tightly. I, Bai Cixin, have worked hard all my life, but you negated all my hard work with just one sentence. I can't accept this. Donghuang Baiji's expression remained unchanged as she said faintly, if I don't remember wrongly, back then, I had already given the order to forbid you two from fighting each other, yet you still joined hands with Xiao Yi and went to Tang family. My voidless realm is a big power in the north, yet you didn't even listen to the words of a big power. Do you even put voidless realm in your eyes? Voidless realm. Voidless realm. Just because you are the Empress of Voidless Realm, does that mean that you have the authority to sentence a person to death? Bai Cixin's voice gradually became agitated and hoarse. Donghuang Baiji silently looked at Bai Cixin, then said, that's right. That's why I can't accept this. Bai Cixin shouted in her sweet voice. Donghuang Baiji looked at the woman in front of her and seemed to be able to understand what the woman in front of her was feeling. However, the position that Dong Huang Baiji was in was different, and thus, the way that Dong Huang Baiji thought would be different. How do you want to seek justice? Dong Huang Baiji asked lightly. As a woman, it was better for Dong Huang Baiji to speak nicely and not directly kill him. A long sword could be seen condensing in Bai Cixin's hand, and Bai Cixin looked at Dong Huang Baiji. Bai Cixin, I'm going to challenge you, Voidless Realms Empress. Bai Cixin's actions caused Yi Hua to be puzzled, and even Qin Ye and Qin Yutong who were standing at the back were stupefied. Challenging Voidless Realms Empress. What was the difference between that and courting death? Dong Huang Baiji's expression slightly changed. This woman is so stubborn that it's a little scary. You are no match for me. Dong Huang Baiji said gravely. She seemed to be trying to dispel Bai Cixin's thoughts. After all, both of their strengths were simply not on the same level. Bai Cixin did not back down and said loudly, Dong Huang Baiji, I know that I am not your opponent, but no matter what, Bai Cixin, still want to challenge you. Even if I have to use my last drop of blood. Right now, Dong Huang Baiji understood that Bai Cixin was standing for his beliefs, even if he were to fall at the entrance of Voidless Realm today. From a woman's point of view, Dong Huang Baiji couldn't bear to do that. However, from the perspective of Voidless Realms Empress wouldn't allow anyone to look down on her. All right. I, Dong Huang Baiji, accept your challenge. Hearing that Dong Huang Baiji accepted her challenge, Bai Cixin's expression changed a bit, as if something had just been released. However, towards this kind of situation, the one who felt the most uncomfortable was Wang Debao. His big hand tightly held onto his wife's delicate hand, seemingly not wanting to let go. Yi Hua and Qin Ye both saw the two's actions. Qin Ye was a little confused. Can't they just live a normal life? Why do they have to be like this? Is it just because of that tone of voice? Yi Hua had encountered similar problems in the past. However, those people were all people who came to take revenge. Even if they knew that they were no match for their opponent, their conviction in taking revenge was incomparably huge. In the past, Yi Hua didn't understand why those people would do that, but now that he thought about it, those people's courage was indeed very big. Facing an opponent that they were no match for, even though they clearly knew that they were going to die, they still didn't hesitate to do so, all for the sake of fulfilling the desire in their hearts. Debao, let me finish one last thing. In the future, I will listen to everything you say. Bai Cixin looked at her husband and said tenderly. Wang Debao mumbled, is there still a future? And, there will be a future. Bai Cixin said with a firm tone. Wang Debao lightly let go of his wife's hand. He felt that if he let go of his wife like this, he might not be able to hold on to her hand anymore. At this moment, Yi Hua looked towards Feng Tian and asked, what did you come here for? Revenge. Right now, Feng Tian didn't have a trace of fear, even if the person who was standing in front of him was Yi Hua. Who are you going to take revenge on? Yi Hua asked curiously. I don't seem to have seen this man before, right? Feng Tian said eerily, that lowly with twin tails. When Feng Tian said that, Yi Hua and the others immediately knew who that lowly was. Such a unique symbol, isn't the Yizizi? No matter what, other people are also here to take revenge, and I, the Supreme Overlord, should satisfy their wish. However, this Feng Tian actually dared to challenge Yizizi. His courage is indeed commendable. Alright, I will grant you your wish. Yi Hua said faintly, then immediately contacted Yizizi. Yizizi, who was currently playing games, received a summon from Yi Hua. Without a choice, Yizizi had no choice but to kill herself. Even if I die, I have to do it myself. It is impossible for me to kill myself. Very quickly, Yizizi appeared at the scene. When Feng Tian saw that familiar face, his entire body trembled slightly. Oh, it's you. didn't I spare you last time? Why are you here again? Yi Zizi really didn't understand what this person was thinking. Feng Tian looked at Yi Zizi's disdainful expression and said, Feng Tian, want to challenge you again. You are really bored, sigh, it's not like you can defeat me. Yi Zizi shook her head, her twin tails swaying behind her head. Yi Zizi seemed to not be interested at all. Isn't this a complete waste of time? Sometimes, telling the truth is very hurtful, just like right now. Yi Hua said faintly, since someone wants to challenge you, are you going to avoid the battle? Yi Zizi pouted her small mouth. Since his honor has already said it like this, what else can I do? Alright, let's fight again then. This time, I won't hold back. Yi Zizi clenched her small fist and waved it. Coupled with that cute expression of hers, Yi Zizi didn't seem to be threatening at all. What Feng Tian wanted was a fair battle, all right. I also hope that you won't hold back. A trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Yi Zizi's mouth. You are very special. Feng Tian didn't say anything, then leaped high into the air and landed at the side. Yi Zizi slowly followed after Feng Tian. The battle between the Empress and Bai Cixin was also at the side. Although both battles were one-sided, Yi Hua still wanted to take a look at it this time. Chapter 673. Looking towards Wang Debao, a strange thought emerged in Yi Hua's mind. This man is very pitiful. His gaze was tightly locked onto his wife, and his gaze carried an indescribable expression that could make one feel depressed. As a man, Yi Hua could somewhat understand Wang Debao's feelings. Just like Qinya, if she knew that she was going to throw her life away, she still went. How would he feel then? Yi Hua stretched out his hand and lightly held on to Qinya's delicate hand, then carried Qinya into his embrace. Qinya nestled in her husband's embrace, seemingly understanding her husband's mood. Qinya, I won't let you suffer any harm. Yi Hua said gravely. I can't care about other people's matters, but when it comes to my own woman. No one could afford to offend him, including himself. Qinya smelled the faint smell of smoke on Yi Hua's body and said tenderly, Yi Hua, I believe in you. Qin Yutang, who was standing at the back, looked at brother-in-law and big sister, and revealed out a smile. Big sister is truly fortunate to have such a good man like brother-in-law dote on her. But I'm also not bad. Brother-in-law also dotes on me. Although it's not open and above board, I'm content. In actuality, Qin Yutang cared a lot about her big sister's thoughts, and she was not willing to see her big sister and Yi Hua quarrel because of her. She would rather hide Yi Hua and Yi Hua for the rest of their lives. This way, she would be able to blame herself a bit less. After all, she was snatching her big sister's man. However, Qin Yutang didn't expect that Qinyo was indeed trying to matchmake them. At this moment, Feng Tian stood on the yellow sand and looked at the little loli in front of him. Without saying a word, he took off his mask. After the mask was lifted, a violent wave of spiritual energy burst out. Yi Zizi's ponytail swayed wildly in the face of the strong wind. However, Yi Zizi's expression remained unchanged. Another Feng Tian seemed to have appeared. He stared at Yi Zizi with the eyes of a hungry wolf. A strong sense of self-confidence exploded from his body. Feng Tian's face became crazed. Today, I, Feng Tian, will take revenge. Boring, Yi Zizi said softly. Yi Zizi could only describe this kind of battle as boring. Feng Tian didn't mind and shouted, I hope you can fight me with your full strength. Okay, I'll do my best. Yi Zizi was also helpless. Why do I have to go all out? I, Yi Zizi, am going all out. Even his honor has to be careful when dealing with me, let alone you. But sometimes, a white lie was necessary. Feng Tian was very satisfied with Yi Zizi's words. His body suddenly burst out, and the yellow sand was lifted up by 100 meters with this one step. A terrifying spiritual pressure rushed towards Yizizi. Yizizi ignored the spiritual pressure and stood still as she watched Feng Tian attack. Feng Tian looked at the defenseless Yizizi and his expression turned terrifying. "You're still looking down on me. Why?" Yizizi's attitude had infuriated Feng Tian to the extreme. At this moment, Feng Tian's strength had actually broken through. A white-red spirit qi wrapped around Feng Tian's entire body, causing the heavens and earth to tremble slightly. The terrifying spirit pressure caused the sky to darken and thunder to rumble. There was no technique behind this punch, but it carried the unwillingness of the heavens. Anger. Frenzy. Yizizi sighed softly. She still did not put up any defense. Die! Feng Tian roared. Countless lightning bolts struck Feng Tian's body, making the terrifying spiritual energy even more ferocious. The entire desert was filled with gales of force 10, as if it was the end of the world. Boom! A huge amount of energy exploded out from Yizizi's chest. At this moment, the air seemed to have been torn apart, and a terrifying cyclone suddenly spread out. If one were to look at it from outer space, one would be able to clearly see a circle. From this, it could be seen how ferocious this punch was. Yihua tightly hugged onto Qingye, and his left hand even secretly held onto Qing Yutong's small hand. No one noticed this action of his. Seeing brother-in-law's action, Qing Yutong felt very happy. Brother-in-law did not forget about me and still cares about me. At this moment, Qing Yutong is willing to do anything for brother-in-law. As long as brother-in-law says the word, I will be willing to climb a mountain of swords and dive into a sea of flames. This Feng Tian is very powerful. Yihua said faintly. If I didn't appear, it would still be possible for them to have a fair competition. However, my appearance is just like a bug, there is no way to get rid of it. Qingye closed her beautiful eyes and said tenderly, "In my heart, you are the most powerful man. The most powerful man is currently holding onto your little sister's hand, and I even feel that it is very exciting. Hugging onto his wife, and holding onto his sister-in-law. There is nothing more exciting than this." Yellow sand swept across the scene, and it was completely impossible to see anything clearly. After quite a while, the yellow sand gradually calmed down, and two figures appeared in Yizizi's field of vision. Yizizi was still standing in the same posture, and Feng Tian's fist landed onto Yizizi's abdomen. "You!" Feng Tian looked at the little loli in front of him and muttered. Yizizi patted onto her skirt and said faintly, "The difference between us is too big." Feng Tian looked at Yizizi and shouted out, "Then, you should fight with all your strength. I don't need your pity. I also don't need your mercy." Yizizi clenched her small fist tightly and wrinkled her brows. "You are the one who said it." A smile appeared on Feng Tian's face, because Yizizi's expression right now could be considered to be serious. "I have received fair treatment." Yizizi took a deep look at the man in front of her, then punched onto Feng Tian's chest with her small fist. No spiritual energy exploded out from Yizizi's fist, and it was just like an ordinary punch. Feng Tian felt the power of Yizizi's fist, and he looked at Yizizi strangely. Crack! Cracks appeared on the left side of Feng Tian's golden face. Like a broken vase, it broke into pieces. Pieces of golden objects fell to the ground, revealing Feng Tian's original appearance. He was a rather handsome man. That's strange, I actually returned to its original color at this moment. That punch seemed to have scattered all of Feng Tian's life force. Blood started to seep out from Feng Tian's skin, and very quickly, it covered his entire body. He was like a blood man. "This is my full strength," Yizizi said softly. Actually, she was lying to him, but it wasn't that important anymore. Feng Tian slowly collapsed on the yellow sand. He looked up at the sky and his lips curled into a smile. "You are really strong, the strongest person I have ever seen," Feng Tian muttered. Yi Zizi pouted, is that so? Maybe you are too inexperienced. Maybe, but I know that you haven't used your full strength. Feng Tian smiled. Yi Zizi shrugged helplessly, all right, you noticed that. Feng Tian's body started to break down like glass shards. Feng Tian muttered, thank you for accepting my challenge. If there is a next life, I will continue to challenge you. Looking at the dying Feng Tian, Yi Zizi said softly, anytime. Okay. Chapter 674. Along with the breeze, Feng Tian's broken body was completely buried in the yellow sand. Yi Zizi sighed lightly. Can't I just live well? What was the point of this? The battle had already ended. Yihua told Yi Zizi to go back first, and the latter hurriedly left the scene to continue eating chicken. Zizi is very strong, Qingye said. Yihua nodded his head, and, Zizi is very strong, even I have to be wary of her. Is that so? This is the first time I heard you say that. Qingye smiled gently. Of course, I am only talking about the battle of strength. Tisk, tsk, tsk. Yihua, then tell me, am I stronger or are you stronger? Qingye asked curiously. She wanted to hear how her husband would answer. Yihua was a man with EQ right now. He said faintly, of course you are stronger. Is that so? Qingye was very happy. It was already not easy for her husband to make her happy. In the past, he would always attack her. The three then looked towards the battle between Donghuang Baizhi and Bai Cixin. This battle is not that simple. Donghuang Baizhi looked at Bai Cixin, who was not far away, and a purple longsword immediately appeared in her hand. Since Bai Cixin wants to challenge me, I will definitely go all out. Bai Cixin held on to the longsword in her hand tightly. Her heart was as calm as still water. Of course, there was also a bit of excitement. I am finally going to fight against the Empress. No matter what the outcome is, I have fulfilled my wish. However, I have let down my husband because I hurt him because of my selfishness. Looking at Donghuang Baizhi's protruding belly, Bai Cixin couldn't help but feel envious. If possible, I also want to have a baby with my husband. Our battle won't hurt your child, right? Bai Cixin asked lightly. This was a personal grudge, and it had nothing to do with the child. Donghuang Baizhi didn't answer this question. Actually, a woman shouldn't be so headstrong. Having a good man and having a child is the true meaning of life. I understand what you are saying, but these are all things that have to be done tomorrow. Today's matters will end today. Bai Cixin still persisted in her belief and didn't waver at all. Bai Cixin, come. Let this Empress have a taste of your strength. Donghuang Baizhi shouted out, and a terrifying spiritual pressure blossomed out from her body. Bai Cixin did not want to fall behind either. Now that she had her primordial spirit, her strength was no longer the same as before. A powerful spiritual pressure instantly spread out and clashed against Donghuang Baizhi's spiritual pressure. The two of them were actually equally matched. It was obvious that Bai Cixin had become much more powerful after she obtained her primordial spirit. In actuality, Donghuang Baizhi still did not bring out her true strength. Right now, her strength was only at the state she was in back then. Ever since she had sex with Yihua, her strength had become stronger and stronger. Adding on the food that Yihua had given her, her strength was no longer the same as before. It could be said that her current strength was all because of Yihua. If not, it would be hard to say who would win today. What Donghuang Baizhi said was right. The current Bai Cixin was no longer the same as before. If Donghuang Baizhi didn't have Yihua, she might have lost today. However, who asked Donghuang Baizhi to have such a man? This was all fate. This was something that no one had expected. Ha! Bai Cixin let out a delicate shout and instantly attacked with the sword in her hand. Dong Huang Baiji's eyes focused, and the purple long sword in her hand turned into purple light. A purple sword chi was instantly condensed, and the purple sword chi flew towards Bai Cixin. Bai Cixin did not have any fear, and the long sword in her hand released a white sword chi. In an instant, the two sword chi collided with each other, and a huge shockwave burst out. The two women's beautiful figures instantly intertwined with each other, and they began a close combat battle. Numerous shockwaves swept across the yellow desert. Wang Debao's expression tensed up as he stared fixedly at the beautiful figure in the middle of the battlefield, and his heart sunk to the bottom. Yihua slightly wrinkled his brows as he looked at the battlefield. Logically speaking, Baiji should be able to quickly end the battle, but right now, the two of them seem to be locked in a stalemate. From the looks of it, Baiji also wants to spare her life. In actuality, all of this was because of Wang Debao, this infatuated man. The reason why Yihua wanted to forgive them was also because of Wang Debao. Back then, those family heads that Yihua had met all basically had multiple wives and concubines, and only Wang Debao didn't have any. This kind of man made Yihua sigh with emotion. Wang Debao is a good man, and for the sake of this good man, Yihua doesn't want to see a tragedy happen. However, Bai Cixin's personality was different, and Wang Debao was destined to be disappointed. Yihua, let them live, Qingye said in a low voice. In actuality, she knew in her heart that Yihua would definitely be unhappy if she said such words. However, when she saw Wang Debao's appearance, she truly could not bear to say such words. This time, Yihua didn't blame Qingye and said lightly, right now, it's not up to us to decide, it's up to Bai Cixin herself, it's up to her whether she's willing or not. Qing Yutong felt that Qing Yutong was right. Women one mustn't be too strong, sometimes, it's good to be a foolish woman. Qingye let out a light sigh. That's right, this matter completely depends on Bai Cixin. As long as Bai Cixin was willing to let go of Dong Huang Baiji would most likely not look into this matter. The battle at the scene was still going on, emitting colorful astral winds that blew across the yellow sand. Boom! The two figures instantly separated from each other, and Dong Huang Baiji's clothes could be seen to be completely fine. On the other hand, Bai Cixin's white robe was already lacerated, and it was even dyed red. However, Bai Cixin's expression did not change. At first glance, she looked a little happy. She enjoyed the moment. He was worried about this moment. Dong Huang Baiji, don't hold back anymore. I hope that you will treat this battle seriously, don't let me feel humiliated. Bai Cixin shouted out. In actuality, it could be seen that Dong Huang Baiji had held back during the battle. However, this was not what Bai Cixin wanted. Just like consecration, she only wanted to obtain her opponent's respect. Dong Huang Baiji's gaze was filled with puzzlement. Do you really want to fight that much? You don't care about Wang Debao's feelings at all. Hearing Dong Huang Baiji's words, Bai Cixin slightly went into a daze. She took a glance at her husband who was far away from her and felt extremely guilty in her heart. However, today, if I can't fulfill my wish, I might as well just die. My husband supports me, just like you. Bai Cixin shouted out gravely. On the surface, Wang Debao supported his wife, but in his heart, he didn't want his wife to do this. However, since his wife wanted to do this, Wang Debao would support her unconditionally. Bai Cixin, I will say this one last time, it's still not too late to stop now, don't let the person who loves you feel sad. Dong Huang Baiji gave her final warning. Bai Cixin stopped and looked at her husband who was far away from her, and her gaze became complicated. At this moment, Bai Cixin imagined the scene after she stopped, and she and her husband would be able to live happily together. However, would that really be happiness? Chapter 675. However, when she saw the worried look on her husband's face, Bai Cixin's heart ached a little. She was not a good woman, nor was she a good wife. She did not give her husband the family he wanted. De Bao, forgive me for bringing you pain. The person I, Bai Cixin, have wronged the most is you. She gently closed her beautiful eyes. When she opened them again, her beautiful eyes were already firm and unwavering. The long sword in his hand was pointed towards Dong Huang Baiji. His intention was very clear. When Wang Debao saw his wife's actions, his eyes were filled with despair, and his body was filled with a deathly aura. Wang Debao is really pitiful. Qingye looked at the lonely figure and said softly. After hearing that, Yihua let out a light sigh. Everyone has the right to make their own choice, and I, the Supreme Overlord, have never interfered with their choices. However, since I have already made my choice, then, he would have to face the consequences of his choice. Regardless of whether he was happy or sad, he would have to bear the pain. Bai Cixin chose to be sad. It couldn't be helped. Life was like this. There were many things that couldn't be perfect. The person you loved, sometimes, it was hard to get anything in return. Wang Debao had sacrificed a lot for Bai Cixin. This kind of selfless sacrifice without asking for anything in return, as a man, Yihua was starting to admire Wang Debao. If he was in Wang Debao's shoes, he probably wouldn't be able to reach the same state of mind as Wang Debao. Since the main body had already paid the price, there had to be some sort of harvest. Even if there wasn't any harvest, he would still forcefully reap the harvest. In the field, Bai Cixin suddenly released a violent burst of spiritual energy, which enveloped her delicate body like white flames. Judging from Bai Cixin's state, it seemed that she was going to give it her all. Bai Cixin's beautiful eyes were filled with joy, but deep in her beautiful eyes, she could not bear to see this. Even Bai Cixin herself knew that she was going to die soon. In this battle, Bai Cixin was planning to bid farewell to her hard work with her death. She did not expect to win at all. Bai Cixin took one last look at her husband and shouted, "Pure core sword technique." Boom! Bai Cixin channeled all the spiritual energy in the surroundings into the long sword in her hand. Her entire longsword was like a ferocious beast, letting out a series of sword cries and trembling violently. Suddenly, the longsword flew out, and everything in its path exploded. Dong Huang Baiji's gaze turned serious, and the purple longsword in her hand immediately released a cyclone. Qinghong Purple Dragon. The purple longsword in Dong Huang Baiji's hand actually transformed into an enormous purple dragon, and an enormous dragon's might spread out in all directions. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the world. Wang Debao seemed to have also seen the future, and he said with a smile, "Our whole family will definitely be very happy." Debao, I'm tired, let's go home. Let's go home. The husband and wife hugged onto each other tightly, and their feet gradually transformed into purple starlight and slowly rose into the sky. Bai Cixin's peaceful and beautiful face slowly disappeared, and Wang Debao's happy smile also gradually transformed into starlight. The purple starlight floated into the sky and blended into the blue sky. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin disappeared just like that, with the hope towards the future, with the longing towards each other, with the longing towards their own home. Perhaps, it would be just like what they said, this kind of ending would be for them to go home. They would no longer have to bother about the worldly disputes, and they would be able to live a relaxed life together. Qingye was already crying her eyes out, and even Qing Yutong was the same as well. Wang Debao's deep love made the two of them moved, and the feelings between the husband and wife made the two of them burst into tears. Especially when the husband and wife gradually disappeared, the color that brimmed on their faces made the two of them feel so sad. The two women leaned onto Yihua's embrace and cried, while Yihua tightly hugged onto Qingye and Qing Yutong. His expression was a bit heavy. "It wasn't that I haven't seen this kind of situation before, I have seen this kind of situation many times in the past. There were men who died for women, and there were women who died for men. At that time, I didn't feel anything, and I even felt that they were stupid. However, right now, Yihua didn't feel that way. Perhaps it was because I knew them, but the death of Wang Debao and his wife made Yihua feel very unhappy. Why did you choose this kind of ending? I allowed you two to live. Yet, you two still chose to die without any hesitation. Chapter 676. The purple longsword in Dong Huang Baiji's hand disappeared, and tears flowed out from the corner of her eyes. When he was fighting with Bai Cixin, he had already sensed that Bai Cixin was here to seek death today. When he saw Wang Debao, he threw himself at Bai Cixin and hugged her tightly in his arms. At this moment, I recalled all the bits and pieces that happened between me and Yihua. From the hatred that I had towards Yihua to the love that I had towards Yihua now, a lot of things had happened in between, but in the end, we were still together. It was the same for them as well. In the end, they still ended up together and went home. Bai Cixin no longer had to bear any burdens. She believed that their last moments would be very blissful. Dong Huang Baiji walked towards Yihua. Meanwhile, Yihua let go of Qing Ye and Qing Yutong who were in his embrace and carried Dong Huang Baiji into his embrace. With such a thing happening, Dong Huang Baiji would definitely feel uncomfortable in her heart. Dong Huang Baiji was the empress of Voidless Realm, and there were a lot of things that were beyond her control. Dong Huang Baiji believed that right now, Dong Huang Baiji's mood was also sorrowful. Dong Huang Baiji, who was being carried in her husband's embrace, also let out a slight choking sound. If it is an evil person who came to invade us, we should just kill them right away. This is what we fear the most. Yihua consoled, all right, this is their own choice, and it has nothing to do with you. This choice is truly painful. Dong Huang Baiji said in a low voice. Yihua let out a sigh. Wang Debao is a decent person. I don't admire many people, but this Wang Debao, I admire that he is a man. In actuality, Yihua had never admired anyone before, especially humans. Wang Debao could be said to be one of the humans that Yihua had come into contact with. The gambling house that day, Xiao Yi, Tang Wishuang, and Wang Debao. Out of the three people, Yihua only had a favorable impression of Wang Debao, and the people who were at the gambling house that day were all dead. Xiao Yi and his wife Nangong Sini, Tang Wishuang's entire family were exterminated by Xiao Yi, and finally, Wang Debao also disappeared today. Originally, I should have been rather happy seeing my opponents die one after another. But following Wang Debao's death, all of this seemed to have become dull. This truly affected my mood. In Wang Debao's villa, Qing Tiandi sat in a wheelchair, staring blankly at the KFC family bucket on the dining table. The words family bucket were so eye-catching, and the leftovers were still on the dining table. Qing Tian looked at the staircase and felt that he could no longer see Feng Tian, who was in a state of isolation. Looking at the two computers at the side, it seemed like she could no longer play Legend of Mir with Wang Debao. She could no longer hear Bai Cixin scolding her husband, nor could she hear Wang Debao begging for mercy. Although a few months was not a long time, Qing Tiandi seemed to be used to this kind of life. He was used to these people gathering together and making vulgar jokes. Qing Tiandi stood up from the wheelchair, sat on the sofa, and turned on the TV. This situation seemed to have returned to the past, and the scene of everyone together involuntarily appeared in his mind. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin suddenly appeared on the left. Wang Debao was begging for mercy. Xiao Yi and Chen Xuanzong appeared on the right. Both of them ignored each other. Feng Tian stood at the side with a stern face, not fitting in with the group. On the other hand, Feng Di was much more easygoing and would occasionally interject with a few words. At that time, the house was very lively. As the phantom dissipated, there was no one on the sofa. Heaven and earth raising event only happened now. So it turns out that these people are all dead. He was the only one left alive. Heaven and earth raising event took out a piece of tissue and wiped the corners of his eyes. Soon after, he folded the tissue and placed it on the coffee table, then slowly stood up. I turned off the TV and the lights in the house. Everyone is gone, and I'm the only one left. Am I supposed to face that kind of loneliness in the past? Although I, Qing Tiandi, am a scheming person, I am not a coward. If I didn't have a reason to kill them in the past, then I have a reason to kill them now. I, Qing Tiandi, am also a person with friends. 4 friends. So what if I, Qing Tiandi, go crazy once? During these few months, Qing Tiandi was actually very satisfied. Compared to his life in the past, his life had undergone a tremendous change. The entire team was also affecting Qing Tiandi's state of mind. Especially today. Feng Tian, who was autistic, chose to face death. Even Wang Debao and Bai Cixin chose to face death. Although Qing Tiandi didn't want to admit it in his heart, when Qing Tiandi saw them leaving, his heart felt very heavy. I actually unknowingly treated them as friends, and not as chess pieces. Everyone is dead, and Qing Tiandi has to face loneliness once again. This is something that Qing Tiandi didn't want to see. After all, who would want to be lonely after experiencing warmth? Qing Tiandi, no matter how much he planned, he didn't include himself. Was this a type of irony, or was this a type of sublimation? No one knew. Xiao Bao was still using all of his strength to grab onto the door, and swish 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 sounds could be heard. Qing Tiandi took a look at the little golden retriever. This is something that Wang Debao entrusted to me, seems like I have to entrust it to someone else too. Holding on to Xiao Bao, Qing Tiandi disappeared from the villa. Chapter 677. Qing Tian took a look at the surroundings and saw that Wang Debao and his wife were nowhere to be seen. Where are they? Qing Tian asked gravely. Yihua took out a cigarette and lit it up. Then, the 3 women stood further away from him. This opponent is mine now. However, I don't understand why he appeared so carelessly. After lightly breathing out a mouthful of smoke, Yihua asked faintly, earlier, you lied to 4 people, did you lie to them again this time? Yihua's words made Qing Tian very angry. That's right, I lied to those 4 old monsters, but today. I definitely didn't lie to them, and I even wanted to stop them. Let me ask you, where are they? Qing Tian shouted out angrily. Dead. Yihua didn't care about Qing Tian's tone. In Yihua's heart, Qing Tian was a man who would do anything to harm others. But if Qing Tian came to take revenge for them, Yihua didn't believe it at all. To a shrewd man like Qing Tian, if he was a bit emotional, then it would basically be over. Qing Tian took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm down the anger in his heart. This man is indeed vicious. He didn't even let a couple go, he is extremely cruel. Qing Tian, I've always wanted to meet you. Although we haven't seen each other in the past few months, we've fought against each other a few times. I have to commend you for your brain, you've made me suffer a little. But I want to tell you that if you use your brain, you'll still have a chance. If you use your strength, you won't stand a chance. I will give you a piece of advice, go back and think about your plan. It would be best if it is a plan that I am helpless against, instead of coming here to fight against me on impulse. Yihua didn't want God raising heaven and earth to die on impulse. After all, he only had God raising heaven and earth as his opponent right now. If even God raising heaven and earth were to die, who else would be able to be my opponent? Heaven and earth sneered and said, you are very arrogant. And very powerful. I, Qing Tian, have cheated a lot of people, but I want you to know that I, Qing Tian, also have friends. And you. But you don't have a single friend. After hearing that, Yihua paused for a moment. Friend? I am a supreme overlord, do I need friends? I don't need friends, I have powerful subordinates, I have a loving wife, and I have cute children. My life is already perfect, what do I need friends for? Friends, Yihua had never tasted friendship before, and his concept of friends was very low as well. To the extent that he even felt that the word friend was a derogatory term, and he even felt that what kind of person was qualified to be my friend. In the whole world, there is no one who is worthy to be my friend. In the whole world, there is no one who is worthy to be my friend. Seeing that Yihua was hesitating, Qing Tiandi said faintly, people like you don't understand the meaning of friendship, you only know how to trample on lives. Qing Tian, do those 4 old monsters count as your friends? Are those 4 old monsters counted as your friends? Is stabbing someone in the back what friends should do? Hi, Qing as, Tian, Qing as I said, I an overlord, I've never treated those 4 old monsters as friends. It's just a relationship of mutual benefit. Then, who is your friend? Yihua asked back. I have treated them as my friends, not as tools to be used. Hearing what Qing Tian said, Yihua was a bit confused. Suddenly, he thought of Wei Chang and the others. They are my subordinates, my friends, and even my relatives. Friends are not the most important, but the kind that I can trust my back with. Qing Tian, I'm actually very optimistic about you, but if you have this kind of emotion, it will affect your judgment. I hope you can pull yourself together and don't force me to kill you right now. Qing Tian said coldly. Yihua's gaze turned cold, and he let out a vicious aura. I hope that Qing Tian, will stop while he's ahead. Qing Tian, smiled coldly, who do you think I, Qing Tian, am? Since I came here today, I don't plan to go back alive. I don't know what I fought for in the past, but today, I, Qing Tian, have fought for the friends in my heart, for the obsession in my heart. What do you have? I am fighting for justice. Yihua muttered. I have been fighting for justice my entire life, and I have never stopped. However, Qing Tian, laughed loudly, justice. Your justice is really shallow. The 3 women stood at the back and listened to their conversation. Their view of Qing Tian had changed. In the past, Qing Tian was a sinister and cunning person, but today, he seemed to have become a person with flesh and blood. After all, he knew that he would die if he came here now, but he still chose to come here like Wang Debao and the others. It seems to be for the beliefs in his heart. If a person doesn't have beliefs, what's the point of living? Perhaps this Qing Tian didn't have beliefs in the past, but now, seems like you are going to stubbornly go your own way. Yihua felt a bit disappointed. These days, it's hard to find a decent opponent. Qing Tian, roared, and the clothes on his body instantly burst apart. That huge Qilin arm and pig trotters gave people a kind of visual impact. Especially that pair of pig trotters. The atmosphere is obviously very gloomy, why do I want to laugh so much? Looking at Qing Tian's current state, Yihua was slightly surprised. After changing his equipment, Qing Tian seems to have become much stronger. However, if I want to keep Qing Tian alive, I'm afraid that I won't be able to keep him alive anymore. Bring out your true abilities and fight with me. Qing Tian, shouted angrily, and the spiritual might that was being emitted from his 4 limbs instantly enveloped the ground, seemingly wanting to pierce through the world. Especially that pair of pig trotters, those were the feet of a prehistoric divine beast, and the aura that was being emitted from them was extremely terrifying. As Qing Tian, took a step forward, and the yellow sand immediately sunk down by quite a bit, and a strange whirlpool even appeared. Today, if I don't die, you will die. Qing Tian pointed his finger at Yihua and said ruthlessly. Sure enough, ruthless people talk a lot too. Yi Hua was giving respect to his opponent. At the very least, Qing Tian was competing with him a lot. Chapter 678. Coupled with his deep gaze, the three women next to him were about to be charmed to death by her husband. Yi Hua took out the most trashy weapon from his collection. It was a double-edged saber called Dongfeng Shangfang. He had already forgotten how it came to be. As for why he picked the weakest one, it was because if he picked a better one, the other party might not even be able to take the first hit. Yi Hua, who was holding onto two blades in his hands, looked even more attractive, especially when the three women looked at Yi Hua's back view. So tall and big, it was as if it could suppress all evil. Qing Tian was able to sense the spiritual might that Yi Hua's weapon was emitting, and he was slightly shocked in his heart. This man sure has a lot of treasures. However, I, holding the heavens and earth, can still fight you with my bare hands. Having changed his limbs, Optimus Prime had an advantage in close combat, especially with his pair of pig hooves. He was definitely an existence that could destroy the heavens. In Optimus Prime's heart, there was even a glimmer of hope for victory. Yi Hua had a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth. He was wearing a silver battle armor and holding a Dongfeng Shangfang in his hand. His entire person looked very imposing, especially the cigarette at the corner of his mouth, which was emitting a faint fiery light. As Yi Hua inhaled, the fiery light gradually became brighter, and Yi Hua exhaled a cloud of smoke. If you are able to make my ashes fall to the ground, I will consider it your victory this time. Yi Hua said faintly. He saw that the cigarette butt had already exposed a small section of ash. As long as he waited for a minute, this section of ash would fall off. Qing Tian roared, I'm going to take your cigarette. Smash your face into pieces. Boom. In an instant, a tremendous amount of spiritual energy burst forth from the pillar, and all the yellow sand within a radius of 1 mile was blown away by this spiritual pressure. Dark clouds began to draw closer to the pillar, and the spiritual energy continued to rise. Thunder rumbled, as if the god of death had descended. Yi Hua narrowed his eyes as he looked at God raising heaven and earth, and he tightened his grip on the twin blades in his hands. Ha! Die! God raising heaven and earth shouted out angrily, and the Qilin arm immediately swelled up to the size of at least a bus. Bringing along a destructive aura, the Qilin arm rushed towards Yi Hua. This punch wasn't like Feng Tian's. In terms of strength, Feng Tian Di was the strongest, and with the help of the Qilin arm, this punch had reached the peak of perfection. It was truly terrifying. Yi Hua looked at the Qilin's gigantic arm that was coming towards him faintly and took a puff of the cigarette. The ash on the cigarette had increased by quite a lot. The ground beneath Yi Hua's feet was trembling, and the immense pressure caused the corner of Yi Hua's mouth to slightly curve upwards. If this heaven and earth supporting artifact had used its brain a little, it wouldn't have ended up in this world. Yi Hua slightly extended the blade in his right hand forward. Bang! A loud sound suddenly erupted. The ground cracked, and thunder rumbled. The huge cyclone whistled in all directions, and the air waves produced by the cyclone collided with Voidless Realm's barrier, causing the entire barrier to tremble violently. From this, one could see how terrifying the collision between the two was. The gigantic Qilin's arm was blocked by Yi Hua's Dongfeng Shangfang. The comparison between the gigantic fist and the blade seemed to be a bit exaggerated. Although it was a bit exaggerated, Yi Hua did not move in the slightest. However, the amount of soot on the ground increased by quite a bit. Is this the power you're so proud of? Hee hee. Yi Hua laughed, and his laughter was filled with infinite ridicule. Qing Tian was a bit shocked in his heart. That punch of mine can be counted as the punch that I gave my all, but the other party actually did not have any reaction at all. How is this possible? The other party did not even move a single inch. Yihua's gaze looked towards the cigarette ash at the corner of Yihua's mouth. It should be falling soon. As long as it falls, I will win. Don't get carried away. Look at my legs. Heaven and earth God shouted out. In actuality, the true power wasn't in the fist, but in the pair of huge pig trotters. Those were the legs of a primitive godly beast. Although Yihua wasn't able to unleash its full potential, it was still very powerful. If heaven and earth God were to know that Yihua was playing around with a primitive godly beast, he wouldn't think like this. This is so terrifying. Yihua looked at heaven and earth God's legs that were becoming infinitely bigger, and he couldn't help but think of an ultimate move. Heaven's legs. I wonder what would happen if heaven's legs were to step on a nail. Heaven and earth God's legs became infinitely bigger, and the aura that was emitted out from the legs of a primitive godly beast was indeed frightening. After all, there were some primitive godly beasts that even overlords didn't dare to provoke, let alone some primitive godly beasts. God knows where heaven and earth God found the legs of a primitive godly beast. The frightening aura floated in the air, and the pair of huge pig trotters that were indomitable could make people suck in a mouthful of cold air. Qin Yutong looked at the huge pig trotters blankly and mumbled, I wonder how these huge pig trotters taste like if they are roasted. Qinya raised her hand and patted onto her little sister's head, Qin Yutong. This isn't a pig, your taste is too heavy. Oh. My head is going to be smacked silly by you too. Qin Yutong rubbed onto her head. Chapter 679. Boom boom boom. The pig trotter stomped down, causing the entire ground to shake violently. At that moment, all the creatures in the desert were scared out of their wits. Those who were closer couldn't withstand the pressure of this kick at all. They didn't even have the time to cry out in pain before their voices were shattered. The three women standing nearby were not worried at all. They knew the man's strength. This kind of battle was like a game to him. There was nothing to be afraid of. Qin Tiandi looked at his feet excitedly. He didn't move at all. How could he be alive when he stepped on him? He was probably a meat patty by now. Ha! Now, do you know that my power is not something you can withstand? Qin Tiandi roared towards the sky, and the crazed expression on his face looked incomparably malevolent. Qin Tiandi felt that he had already reached the bottom, and it was impossible for Yihua to survive. Really? A familiar voice rang out, causing the excited heaven and earth to freeze. His foot had already reached the bottom. Why was he still alive? That voice had indeed come from his foot. How was this possible? However, if one were to take a closer look, Yihua was holding onto the blade with one hand and was blocking the huge hoof that was holding onto the heaven and earth. However, no matter how much strength Yihua exerted on the huge hoof that was holding onto the heaven and earth, Yihua felt that he was unable to step on the huge hoof, because he did not have the strength to do so at all. You! Qin Tian's expression changed as he felt a terrifying aura coming from beneath his feet. Yihua shouted out, Qin Tian, you are the first person who dares to step on me. Upon sensing Yihua's anger, Qin Tian hurriedly retracted his leg. However, no matter how fast he was, how could he be faster than Yihua? Qin Tian saw a silver light flash past, and he felt a slight pain in his right leg. A line of blood appeared on his right leg, and blood flowed out from his right leg. Then it comes off very smoothly. Boom! The huge pig trotter fell onto the yellow sand, and the blood flowed all over the ground, fusing into the yellow sand. The blood that came from the ancient divine beast attracted a large number of mutated animals, and they dared to come over without any regard for their lives, and they sucked on the pig trotter's body. They didn't even let off the pig trotter's meat, and the scene made people feel numb. A large pig trotter was instantly gnawed into bones. Impossible. How could you defeat a primeval divine beast? Impossible. Qing Tian didn't care about the broken leg. Instead, he glared at Yi Hua and questioned. Yi Hua silently inhaled a mouthful of smoke. The ash on the cigarette was already as long as a fingernail, and it was a bit bent, seemingly about to fall off at any moment. In your heart, is an ancient divine beast a very powerful species? Yi Hua asked back. Isn't it? Yi Hua sneered, seemingly mocking Qing Tian's ignorance. Young man, you are too inexperienced. I shall let you see what a primordial divine beast is. Yi Hua could be seen stretching out his index finger, and a circular black hole appeared in the air. Looking at what Yi Hua is planning to do. However, there seemed to be a strange sound coming from within the black hole, and suddenly, a silvery white figure flew out from the black hole. Woo, 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 this was the unique cry of a husky. That's right, this is Yun Lang, the one that Yi Hua caught to make up the numbers. Just that, the way in which Yi Hua appeared was a bit embarrassing, seems like he was kicked out by Yi Zizi. Yun Lang flipped over and shook off the sand on his body. Then, he licked his lips. Yi Hua looked at Yun Lang, and his complexion became a little bad. The corner of Qing Tian's mouth twitched. This man dared to insult him with a husky. Unforgivable. Qing Ye and the others covered their mouths and laughed lightly. My husband wanted to act cool, but in the end, this Yun Lang was actually kicked out by Yi Zizi. Afterward, Yun Lang rolled on the ground and even wagged his tail, looking as if he didn't know anything. Yi Hua really wanted to stew Yun Lang during the new year. A living ancient divine beast actually turned into a dog. Did your dignity get eaten by yourself? Qing Tian suddenly shouted out loudly, is this your so-called ancient divine beast? I didn't expect that you are such a humorous person. A husky can also be called an ancient divine beast. I'm going to die from laughter. Yun Lang was originally sticking out his tongue at Yi Hua, but after hearing Qing Tian's words, he seemed to be a bit unhappy, and his dog head slowly looked towards the tall and big Qing Tian. If the Yun Lang just now was a husky, then right now, that unique gaze of his looked a bit like that of a wolf. Furthermore, it is the kind of wolf that is very handsome, just a single gaze of his would be able to seduce you. Woo, 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 Yun Lang let out a long howl. After howling, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. This is something that dogs love to do, roar. Yun Lang let out a new howl. This howl actually produced a sonic boom, and it attacked towards Qing Tian. Meanwhile, Qing Tian's expression sunk, and he placed both of his hands on his chest. However, how could he, who only had one leg, withstand the attack of an ancient divine beast, and his entire body fell backwards? Qing Tian's heart was in turmoil. I actually got drunk by a husky. How is this possible? I am just a husky. A husky that demolishes houses. Yun Lang's body was gradually becoming bigger, and the fur on his body was like steel spikes, and his terrifying fangs were exposed to the air. This is a true ancient divine beast. Qing Tian looked at the enlarged version of the husky blankly, and his heart seemed to be a bit unable to withstand such a blow. How did the husky turn into an ancient divine beast, and with just a howl, he actually managed to blow me down? Yun Lang's gaze was fierce as he let out a low howl. His body slightly leaned downwards, and he was prepared to pounce onto Yi Hua at any moment. Yi Hua took another puff of his cigarette, and half of the cigarette ash had already formed, but it had yet to fall onto the ground. This Yun Lang's entrance is a bit weak, but what he did just now still gave me face, and it can be considered as making up for my mistake. Impossible. Why would an ancient divine beast listen to your orders? Qing Tian couldn't understand. Ancient divine beasts are the highest grade spiritual creatures. Why would they listen to a human's orders? This is something that has never happened before. There are still a lot of things that you don't know. No. Qing Tian let out a miserable howl, and his body instantly bounced up, and his remaining left leg kicked towards Yi Hua's side. Yihua had already kept his dual blades, and the armor that he was wearing on his body had also been kept. These things are really unnecessary. I only wanted to act cool just now, and let my wife and sister-in-law worship me. As for the current situation of the battle, Yihua didn't need to worry about it anymore. Because Yunlang had already made his move. As an ancient divine beast, Yunlang's explosive power was very terrifying, and his biting ability was also top-notch. Looking at that big pig trotter, Yunlang unconsciously swallowed his saliva, and without thinking too much, he directly bit onto that pig trotter. When Qing Tian saw that the ancient divine beast was actually rushing towards his leg, a joyous expression appeared on his face. No matter what, my leg is also an ancient divine beast. It shouldn't be hard for me to kick it to death, right? The idea is good, but the reality is cruel. Chapter 680. In actuality, the leg of a prehistoric godly beast is very nutritious. Qing Tian, who had lost both of his legs, fell from the sky and laid on the yellow sand with a dazed expression. My strongest trump card was actually broken by someone. It wasn't a person. It was a husky. This is impossible. Yunlang was still hugging onto the prehistoric godly beast's meat and chewing on it. So fragrant. Yihua slowly walked towards Qing Tian's side and said faintly, "Actually, you didn't do anything wrong. If I had to point out a mistake, then it would be choosing to become my enemy." Qing Tian laughed. "So you are actually such a powerful person. I have underestimated you." "A lot of people underestimated me. That's because I am low-key and never flaunt myself." Yihua felt that he was low-key enough. "My wives are obviously very beautiful. If I were to bring them out, I would definitely be envied by others. Seems like I have to bring them out for a walk in the future." Qing Tian sighed lightly. "Actually, this kind of ending is really good. Living alone is really boring." If it was the Yihua in the past, he would definitely deny this sentence. How can living alone be lonely? Didn't I, the Supreme Overlord, get used to living alone in the past? However, the current Yihua agreed with this sentence, because with a wife and children, only those who have experienced such a family would know how terrifying that kind of loneliness is, to the point that it can even torture someone to death. If Yihua were to return to his previous life, he would definitely not be able to do it. He would only become even more berserk and become a homicidal maniac. And loneliness is very scary. Yihua said faintly. Qing Tian looked towards Yihua. "I feel that we should be the same kind of people." "Perhaps." Yihua said faintly. "Send me away. I am tired after so many years. I need to rest." Qing Tian said faintly. "I don't want to continue fighting anymore. I am too tired. I don't even know why I have been living for so many years, and I only found out now, although it is a bit late." Yihua lightly inhaled a mouthful of smoke, and the ash finally fell to the ground. Looking at Yihua's ash falling to the ground, Qing Tian laughed lightly. "I won." Yihua didn't say anything and turned around to leave, and the ash turned into blue starlight in the sky and landed on Qing Tian's body. Qing Tian slowly closed his eyes and murmured, "Debao, let your wife light a family bucket when we attack Sand City tonight." The towering sky above the yellow sand turned into blue stars, drifting along with the wind and merging with the blue sky. Yihua took a deep breath. Today's matter didn't make me happy at all. Why would I be unhappy? Is it because all of us died? Or could it be that I don't want them to die? When did I become like this? I look like a sissy. I often scolded Qinya and the others for being indecisive and indecisive. Today, my mental state is also lacking. Looking at Yunlang, who was at the side, who was gnawing on a bone, Yihua said faintly, "After you finish eating, we will head back." Wolf Imperial Translation, "Yes, Your Honor." With a grave look on his face, Yihua walked into Voidless Realm. The three women took a look at each other. Yihua is a bit strange. Is he unhappy? Logically speaking, the death of an opponent like Qin Tian should be something to be happy about. But, what's going on with Yi Hua? You all should go and take a look at brother-in-law, don't get depressed. Qin Yutong chose to leave first and let her big sister and big sister Baiji go and comfort brother-in-law. When brother-in-law is free, I will properly comfort brother-in-law. I guarantee that every part of brother-in-law's body will feel comfortable. Qinya and Donghuang Baiji naturally had to go and take a look at their husband. It was very rare to see their husband so worried. Previously, he seemed to have been worried about his aunt's matter for a few days. The two wives arrived at the palace's backyard. Yi Hua sat on a rocking chair and lightly rocked back and forth. With a cigarette between his fingers, Yi Hua looked at voidless realm's sky. In actuality, Yi Hua was thinking, other than those old men, Qin Tian also caused me to suffer a loss. If not for the appearance of soul separation, it would have been very hard for voidless realm's image to be changed. It would also be impossible for me to send my own people to kill people and then put on a show. Although the end result would still be the same, the appearance of soul separation was heaven's will, and the decision to kill people at the start was also her own decision. What does that have to do with me? I just made use of her a little. That Qin Tian used the heads of 300,000 people to frame me. From this, it could be seen how vicious this person is. However, today, he was willing to die for his friends. Yi Hua couldn't figure out what exactly Qin Tian was thinking. I was originally still thinking about how you were going to play this game of chess. Yet, I didn't expect that you would actually destroy this game of chess, and furthermore, you did it when I was the happiest. Thinking up to here, Yi Hua's brows wrinkled. Motherf asterisk cur. Yi Hua shouted out gravely. This Qin Tian is using his death to make me unhappy. What a ruthless man. How terrifying. Yi Hua, you are speaking vulgarities again. Qinya directly sat on her husband's thigh, then snuggled into his embrace. The Empress was the same as well. The two women seemed to be planning to use a woman's gentleness to make their husband feel at ease. Obsession sure is scary. Yi Hua said faintly. Qinya said tenderly, Yi Hua, didn't you always say that the choice is chosen by others? Their choice made me very disappointed, and I suddenly feel a bit disappointed. Donghuang Baiji kissed onto Yi Hua's cheek. Don't you still have us? Don't you still have the children, and a group of loyal subordinates? Yi Hua laughed. That's right, I still have you guys. We are a big family. And, big family. The two women said tenderly. They understood what Yi Hua meant by big family. Yi Hua had included all of his subordinates into his family. In actuality, every time Yi Hua hosted a gathering, it could be seen that he really enjoyed the time he spent with his subordinates. As a leader, Yi Hua was a bit fierce, but as a friend, Yi Hua didn't put on any airs. Let's go shopping. It has been a long time since I accompanied you guys out for a walk. Bring all Li and Yen along. Yi Hua said. Sometimes, I still have to return to my normal life. I can't continue living like this forever. Qinya pouted her small mouth and said, You are still talking about going shopping. Every time I ask you to accompany us to go shopping, what do you say to me? That's right, it's as if accompanying us to go shopping is very embarrassing. Donghuang Baiji had an unwilling look on her face. The Empress is very cute. Yi Hua didn't blame them. In the past, when they asked me to go shopping, I would always reject them. What's the point of going shopping for something as boring as going shopping? I might as well stay at home and watch Calabash Brothers save Grandpa. Chapter 681. I, the Supreme Overlord, have always been living my life according to my own wishes, and I rarely think about them. It's time for me to look at things from their point of view. As expected, after hearing Yi Hua's promise, Qinya and Donghuang Baiji were extremely happy. As long as Yi Hua said it, he would not be able to run away. After all, Yi Hua was a supreme overlord, he would not lie. Come, let's go shopping, I haven't bought clothes and bags for a long time. Qinya was already impatient, she really wanted to go shopping. Dong Wang Baiji was the same, I heard that a lot of new goods have been released, Qinya, we can't keep up with the times. Yi Hua still didn't know what they meant, they were blaming him. Let's go, call the little fellows. Yi Hua stood up and extinguished the cigarette butt. When the two little fellows heard that they were going out to play, they became very excited. They immediately changed their clothes, then dragged their mother who was putting on makeup and told them to hurry up. Qinya and Dong Huang Baiji had not gone out for a long time. Women's nature was to be beautiful, so they had to put on makeup and whatnot. Although there was no need for them to put on makeup and whatnot. However, Dong Huang Baiji was now a public figure, and Yi Hua didn't want to cause any chaos, so he asked Dong Huang Baiji to slightly change her appearance. She turned into Qin Yutong. This caused Dong Huang Baiji to feel very depressed. I can't even use my original appearance when I go shopping with my husband. In actuality, Yi Hua was a bit selfish. If everyone were to know that I am the Empress's husband, who would dare to provoke me, right now, Qing Tian is already dead, the only one who dares to play with my brain against me, what a pity, this kind of talent is very hard to find. This kind of talent has never appeared in the past. After changing into ordinary clothes, the family finally went out and went to Long and City's shopping center. 1 hour later, Yi Hua brought the two children and sat in a cold drink shop. Dong Huangli and Yi Yan were drinking fruit juice, while Yi Hua was holding onto an ice cream cone and licking it from time to time. Going shopping with a woman is no different from committing suicide, and I actually agreed to this kind of thing. As expected, I can't be emotional, I was still too impulsive. Daddy, I'm so bored. Dong Huangli said while holding onto a big cup of fruit juice. Yi Yan let out a breath. I really don't know why mothers like to go shopping so much. Her's legs are about to break. Yi Hua let out a light sigh. Your mother loves to go shopping the most, and she won't come out for a few hours. Daddy, let's go and find something else to play with. Dong Huangli jumped down from her seat and pulled onto the corner of her father's shirt. Yi Hua felt that his daughter's suggestion was pretty good. Where are we going? As long as it is not here. Yi Yan begged in a low voice, expressing that Yi Yan is most afraid of shopping malls, and that Yi Yan doesn't have to come here anymore in the future. Yi Hua agreed with his son's opinion. Let's go, Daddy will bring you two out to play. Oh yeah, alright. Yi Hua carried the two of them with each of his hands, and just like a stay-at-home dad, he walked out of the ice cream shop. You guys, quickly take a look and see if Mom is here or not. Yi Hua said gravely, as if something big had happened. Dong Huangli and Yi Yan immediately became serious, and they began carefully observing the enemy in their surroundings. Daddy, if you didn't find Mummy, you can just slip away. Dong Huangli said in a low voice. Yi Hua's gaze became serious. All right. Yan pay attention to the 9 o'clock direction. Ollie, pay attention to the 6 o'clock direction. Report immediately when you see the enemy. Yes. Yes. The two little fellows accepted the order, and with an excited look on their faces, they slipped away with their father. Meanwhile, Qinya and Dong Huang Baiji were standing on the second floor. Looking at their husband sneaking away with the two children, Qinya's expression sunk. However, they also felt that it was funny to think that Yi Hua actually has such a side to him. He even said that he would accompany us, yet he couldn't even hold on for an hour. Dong Huang Baiji said coquettishly. What a big liar, he doesn't keep his words. Qinya said helplessly, 1 hour is already more than enough. In the past, he would be called away in less than 10 minutes. Forget it, let's go shopping by ourselves. It is fortunate that you are here. If I was alone, would be bored to death. Haha, I am the same. The two women were holding hands, and they were getting more and more harmonious. This was also the situation that Yihua wished to see. Yihua, who was carrying the two children, successfully escaped. Daddy, this is too fun, we escaped. Yi Yan clapped his hands and shouted excitedly. If I was caught by my mother just now, I would definitely be scolded. Dong Wangli was also grinning from ear to ear. Daddy, let's play more often in the future, alright? Yihua nodded his head. At the very most, I only taught them how to practice techniques, but I rarely interacted with the children. Today, I had a sudden inspiration and played around with the children for a while. Such an action of mine definitely cannot be seen by others. If someone were to see it, I would definitely kill them to silence them. While carrying the two little fellows, Yihua stood on the busy street. There were many people walking to and fro on the street, but it was different from before. Right now, everyone's physique had improved, and their complexions looked much better. Furthermore, there were many people who had the mark of strength on their chests. What stars, moon, nowadays, it doesn't matter if you have a car or a house, as long as you have a few stars, it would be fine. This was a world where the strong were respected, and even a rich person couldn't compare to a single star. This allowed some youngsters to see hope. Through their own efforts, they were able to reach the level of a cultivator and bring honor to their ancestors. Yihua was very satisfied with the current world. Everyone should have the right to pursue what they want. I, the Supreme Overlord, can bestow everything to you, but don't make the wrong choice. Once you make the choice to die, no one will be able to save you. A person who was wearing a bear mask was currently handing out leaflets, and Dong Wangli curiously took one of the leaflets. Big sister, what's on this? Yi Yan asked curiously. It's Long and City's gymnasium, which is currently holding a challenger tournament. Dong Wangli placed the leaflet in front of her father. Originally, Yihua didn't want to go and watch these boring things. I might as well go and watch a movie. Isn't there a new movie called Venom that was released recently? I heard that it is very awesome. However, looking at the children's expectant eyes, Yihua didn't have the heart to reject them. Let's go and take a look. Yihua nodded his head. Dong Wangli and Yi Yan were extremely happy, and while hugging onto their father, Yihua's face was filled with saliva. Why would Yihua dislike his own children? And in the eyes of others, the relationship between father and son was really good. While carrying the two children, Yihua walked towards the gymnasium that was not far away from him. Just when he got close to the gymnasium, ear-deafening roars could be heard coming out from the gymnasium. This made Yihua think of the scene that happened on Blue Blaze Planet. The people on Blue Blaze Planet also like to watch duels like this. Seems like humans like duels like this. Chapter 682. Bringing along the two children, Yihua bought the tickets, and under his son's strong request, Yihua also bought popcorn, cola, and Cheers lollipop. Walking into the gymnasium, deafening cheers sounded in their ears. The two little guys were very excited. They jumped out of their father's arms and looked inside the gymnasium. They saw a marble arena in front of them. Two warriors were fighting, and people were waving tickets in their hands, cheering for their contestants. Yihua shouted out faintly, "Don't run around, follow me closely." Although the two little fellows were excited, they did not dare to ignore their father's words. They obediently followed behind their father and found their seats. Yihua slowly sat down, while Dong Wangli and Yi Yan sat at the side. Dong Wangli and Yi Yan were drinking cola while watching the fight. On the arena were two youngsters. Their strength levels were imprinted on their chests. They were both 1 star, belonging to the ranks of cultivators who had just stepped into the ranks of cultivators. A fight of such strength was nothing in front of the two little fellows, but the atmosphere at the scene was quite good. The two little fellows seemed to be in high spirits and began to cheer for their favorite opponents. Yihua took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up. This kind of fight is already boring to the extreme. However, the atmosphere is pretty good. At the very least, it is more interesting than accompanying my wife to go shopping. Sister, who do you think will win? Yi Yan sucked on the iced cola in his hand and asked curiously. Dong Guangli pursed her lips. It doesn't matter who wins, it's fine as long as we are happy. And, you're right. Yi Yan agreed with his sister's words. As long as he was happy, he didn't care who won or lost. Yihua naturally heard it, but he did not say anything. To be able to make my child happy is already an honor for you. However, if you want to make my child happy, you'll need to use your brain. As the competition continued, one of the men was punched out of the ring. The audience immediately cheered, but some sighed helplessly and tore the tickets in their hands. Looking at the situation, Yihua shook his head helplessly, then looked towards the children beside him, and saw that all of them had actually fallen asleep. At first, they were clamoring to come and watch, but now they were so bored that they were sleeping. When Yihua saw that Yan had fallen asleep while leaning on Ali, a trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Yihua's mouth. Yihua didn't wake up the children and just let them sleep. The second match soon began. Ladies and gentlemen, the battle between two Moon-class elites is about to begin. I'm sure it will be a great visual experience. Let's go. As the host shouted, Moon-class elites walked out from both sides. After hearing that, Yihua felt bored as well. What kind of visual enjoyment could a Moon-class elite have? After all, they had gotten used to the exciting life, and after a while, they would be bored to death. If this went on, would he have to return early? However, when he thought about the child in his wife's womb, Yihua felt that it was better for him to stabilize the situation first. Yan is still young right now, and it would be beneficial for Yan to stay here and properly learn first. Supporting his chin with his right hand, Yihua's gaze was placed on the stage. The two people on the stage were exchanging blows with each other, and the two of them were releasing quite a bit of spiritual energy. Moon-class elites were too powerful. The people who were watching the battle were in awe, and they even looked at Moon-class elites with admiration. Yihua's eyelids became a bit heavy, and the ash from the cigarette fell onto the clothes that he was wearing. The cigarette but at the corner of his mouth also gradually extinguished. The father and son trio actually fell asleep in this kind of environment. It was simply unbelievable. Not knowing how much time had passed, Qingye and Donghuang Baiji walked out of the shopping mall while carrying big and small bags. The two looked at other people's boyfriends whose hands were filled with bags, and then looked at their own. I'm really envious, Qingye smiled helplessly. In the past, I had also fantasized about having a boyfriend who would follow behind me and help me carry my bags. From the looks of it now, it is impossible for that to happen in this lifetime. Ha, Qingye, you still have such a scary thought. Yihua would only help us carry our bags when the sun rises from the west. Donghuang Baiji teased. It is already not bad for a chauvinist like him to accompany you out for a walk. Qingye smiled sweetly and said slowly, of course, a girl would hope for a man to dote on her. Baiji, have you not fantasized about it before? Alright, I don't even dare to fantasize about it. It is getting late, it is time to go back and cook. Qingye looked at her watch. It was already 5 p.m., unknowingly, they had actually strolled around for 3 hours. Donghuang Baiji nodded her head, let's go and find them first and see what Yihua is doing with the kids. Qingye sensed Yihua's aura, and very quickly, she found Yihua's location. The two women bought tickets and walked into the gymnasium. Right now, the battle was still in full swing, and the battle had not stopped at all. Yihua is actually bringing the kids to watch this. Qingye said angrily. How old is Yan He, and yet he is watching this kind of thing? Right now, Donghuang Baiji was a lot more open-minded. It doesn't matter if they watch it, this is just a normal battle, and there won't be any fatalities. Baiji, you have changed. In the past, you were always standing on my side. Qingye couldn't help but pinch the empress. Donghuang Baiji said in a low voice, be careful, Yihua and I might join hands to bully you. How let us wait and see then. Qingye mercilessly retaliated, causing the empress to laugh continuously. All of the men in the gymnasium were looking at the competition, and none of them paid attention to what was happening over here. These two women are much more good-looking than the men on the stage. Holding hands, the two women found their husbands. However, when they saw the appearance of their husbands and children, they felt as if they were struck by lightning. Yihua could be seen sitting paralyzed on his seat without a care for his image, and unknowingly, the two little fellows were already lying on their father's body. The main point was that saliva was actually flowing out from the corner of Yihua's mouth. This was what caused Qingye and Donghuang Baiji to be astonished. How could the two women let go of such an embarrassing situation? The two women immediately took out their phones and started taking photos of their husbands. You even said that we salivate when we sleep at night, but don't you look the same as us? Also, this sitting posture, where does it have the demeanor of a supreme overlord? It simply looks like. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji didn't know how to describe it, but in any case, it looks like an uncle. Looking at the Yihua in the photos, Qingye and Donghuang Baiji couldn't help but laugh out loud. Hearing that familiar laughter, Yihua slowly opened his eyes and subconsciously wiped the corner of his mouth, and his face twitched, his entire face darkened. Afterward, when he looked at his wives who were laughing, he felt that he had lost all of his face. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji waved their phones. Yihua, you won't be able to escape this time, right? Supreme Overlord who salivates, ha 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 ha. Chapter 683. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji stuck out their tongues. I won't delete it. That's right, that's right. It wasn't easy to capture it. Yihua took a glare at his wife. It seems like if you two don't delete the video, I, the Supreme Overlord, am going to fly into a rage. What are you glaring at, not accompanying us to go shopping, and even throwing a tantrum? I still have to send this photo to the group. Qingye snorted, then immediately sent the photo to the group. Not to be outdone, Donghuang Baiji even sent a video to the group. You! Yihua was stupefied. Are these two women itching for a beating? To actually dare to post my embarrassing state in the group. Yihua immediately took out his phone and opened up WeChat. Sure enough, there was a photo of him in the group, and he was drooling. Her Majesty is even more amazing, Lai Gu, oh my god, is this our boss? My worldview is ruined. Laughing emoji, Zishan, ah. My image of a male god in my heart has been destroyed, pitiful. Brett, your honor is so low, pouted mouth, Wei Chang, his honor is still as down-to-earth as always. Happy, Sun Fang, your honor is so cute, picking his nose, Yi Zizi exclaimed, oh my god. What did I just see? That saliva. Dongfang Yuer, your wife really knows how to play, covering mouth, Yi Hong, your honor, everyone is roasting me, I think it's better for me to not vomit. Laughing emoji, Qin Yutong, brother-in-law, you actually ruined your image, crying emoji, death mage, GGG. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji were already laughing to the point that their stomachs were aching. This is how this WeChat group is, there is no hierarchy, and everyone can freely roast each other. This is what Yihua said in the past. Meanwhile, when Yihua saw his subordinates ridiculing him in various ways, his lungs were about to explode from anger. He immediately sent an angry emoji, but not only did it not work, but the complaints became even worse. Yihua was angered to the point that he almost wanted to leave the group. I will properly teach you all a lesson in the future. Yihua kept his phone and looked at his wife. Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi were also teasing their husband, and both of them kissed Yihua. Only then did Yihua feel a bit better. My wife's lips are so fragrant. The little fellow, who was sleeping soundly, was also woken up. Mom, Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi carried the two children into their embrace, then kissed the two children, causing the two little fellows to be extremely happy. Mommy, Yen is hungry. Yi Yen pouted, looking like he was about to starve to death. Yes, Mom will go back and cook for Yen. Mummy is the best. Yen likes Mummy the most. Yi Yen hugged onto his mother and acted coquettishly. Qingye was very happy. Seems like I have bought over my son's stomach. Donghuang Baizhi said lightly, Yihua, let's return. Yihua stood up, patted away the cigarette ash that was on his clothes, then said in a bored manner, let's go back. The family of 5 walked on the passageway, and Yihua was yawning, looking as if he still hadn't woken up. However, just as the family was about to leave, a dragon roar suddenly sounded in the sky. This dragon cry caused everyone to be stupefied, and even Yihua stopped his footsteps, then slowly turned his body around and looked towards the sky. This? Qingye slightly wrinkled her eyebrows. This dragon roar is definitely not ordinary. Something bad is going to happen. Donghuang Baizhi said in a deep voice. Her expression was very grave. Although it was just a single dragon roar, one could still feel it. It's very strong. Although Yihua went into a daze for a moment, he immediately came back to his senses. Right now, Yihua's heart was starting to become excited, and he was also feeling an unexpected joy. I, the Supreme Overlord, was feeling very depressed today. However, this dragon roar made me feel very happy. This is exactly the feeling that I want. Just based on this dragon roar. This dragon roar is the strongest that I, the Supreme Overlord, have ever met here. I wonder what kind of surprise this dragon roar will bring to me. Donghuang Li and Yi Yen were also looking at the sky. Right now, the sky was gradually turning red, just like the sunset, the sky had turned into a fiery red color. This sudden change caused the 2 cultivators on the stage to stop their footsteps, then raise their heads and look towards the sky. Everyone in the audience stood up and looked towards the abnormal scene that was happening in the sky. There were even some people who were discussing in low voices. I seem to have heard a dragon roar just now, am I hallucinating? I also heard it just now, so you aren't hallucinating. Why did the sky become like this? It seems like the end of the world is coming. Could it be that something is coming? It can't be that another demon is coming, right? My God, why is it like this? Yihua took out a stick of cigarette and leaned on the cigarette, and a curious expression appeared on the corner of his mouth. When Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi saw the look on their husband's face, they immediately knew what Yihua was thinking. This enemy is completely tailor-made for Yihua. Heaven and earth had just died in the morning, but he was immediately replaced in the afternoon. It felt like the enemies were coming one after another. Roar! A dragon roar rang out once more, causing everyone's scalps to go numb. It was different from the previous roar, it was much closer this time. It was as if it was right beside his ear. He's here. Yihua said faintly. In the red sky, an illusory figure appeared in everyone's field of vision. A giant red dragon was circling in the sky, displaying its strength and mighty body to the world. It really is a dragon. F***ck me. I can't believe I've seen a dragon in my life. This is not a special effect. This is a real dragon. There really are dragons in this world. This is too unexpected, this is too unexpected, Shinran Ah. I want to make a wish. Yihua's gaze wasn't placed on the dragon's body, rather, it was placed on another item. There seemed to be something hanging on the dragon's sharp claws. Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi both saw it. Compared to the Shinran, that black thing was even more worrying. When the Shinran gradually got closer, some people finally saw it clearly. This is a Shinran coffin pulling. There's actually such a thing. It seems like it only appears in novels. That's right, I have also seen it before. Other people's coffin pulling is called Nine Dragons pulling. Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi were very confused. They had no idea what that thing was. Yihua, what is that? Donghuang Baizhi asked curiously. Yihua said gravely, inside that coffin, there is a very powerful creature. Hearing what their husband said, Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi became a bit gloomy. Because Yihua said that the creature inside was very powerful. If possible, the two women would love to hear their husband say that although the creature inside was very powerful, it was still trash. However, Yihua didn't say anything about it. I just didn't say anything about it. Look at how worried the two of you are, I'm really speechless. The Shinran flew to the sky, and the coffin that was below its claws loudly fell onto the ground. A dragon roar sounded out once again, and soon after, the coffin flew towards the sky, as if it had never appeared in the first place. The sky returned back to its original color. Meanwhile, that coffin actually landed at the center of the stage and was deeply embedded into the marble floor. Chapter 684. Everyone's gaze looked towards the coffin, and curiosity could be seen on their faces. Even Yihua was no exception. Is there a human or a monster inside the coffin? The two people on the stage took a glance at each other, then mustered up their courage and gradually approached the coffin. This action caused everyone to hold their breaths. Just what is going to happen? Strange patterns could be seen engraved on the surface of the coffin. The two looked at the patterns curiously. The pattern seemed to be a strange painting. In the painting, there were 6 people holding weapons and facing an army. Yihua said faintly while smoking his cigarette, if I am not mistaken, this coffin should be a type of seal. Seal? Donghuang Baizhi asked doubtfully. It's just that the seal is broken now. Yihua laughed lightly. Judging from the degree of the seal, it seems to be very strong. Qingye was very curious, then, what is the meaning of the dragon just now? Let's make a hypothesis. This dragon is a species that was guarding the coffin, but after discovering that the seal disappeared, then. Yihua didn't finish his sentence. He wanted to hear what his wives thought. However, before Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi said anything, Donghuang Li said, then, it threw this threat here and ran away by itself. Haha, my Ali sure is smart. Yihua caressed his daughter's face. This is just a hypothesis, I don't know the truth behind it. Yihua laughed, but Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi didn't. Even a divine dragon is unable to contend against such a dangerous thing. Donghuang Baizhi muttered. Yihua flicked the cigarette ash, let's take a look first and see just what kind of person it is. The two women nodded their heads and continued to look at the stage. After the two people on the stage finished sizing up the coffin, they tried to use their hands to test the coffin. However, before the two people's hands could even touch the coffin, a strange aura was emitted out from the coffin. The two people's expressions changed, and their bodies began twitching violently. Life force was being extracted from their bodies and fused into the coffin. In less than a few seconds, the two people fell onto the ground like skin and bones. Yihua felt that this move was a bit similar to Yi Zizi's, extracting blood essence. This move was extracting life force. The difference between the two wasn't too big. Seeing the two people on the stage die in an instant, the tens of thousands of people present were so shocked that they even forgot to run away. A golden barrier instantly enveloped the arena, and the host's voice was heard, "Everyone, don't panic. The barrier has been activated, and the relevant personnel are rushing over." He had just finished speaking. The lid of the coffin fell down with a loud bang. From the heavy thud, one could tell that the weight was not ordinary. Even the marble was shattered. Yihua looked at the coffin in the darkness. Just who is it that walked out of the coffin? Qingye and Donghuang Baiji became nervous. On the other hand, Donghuang Li and Yi Yan were excited, just like their father. A strange picture scroll could be seen floating within the coffin. This phenomenon caused everyone to go into a daze. Even Yihua was surprised. A painting. Furthermore, it was a landscape painting, but at the bottom right corner of the painting, a person was sitting and fishing. This wasn't strange. What was strange was that the person who was fishing seemed to be moving. This painting. Could it be that it is also a layer of seal? Qingye asked gravely. Donghuang Baiji nodded her head. It should be. This painting should be a powerful sealing treasure, and this coffin should be the same as well. There are 2 layers of seal on it. Just who is it? Furthermore, right now, even the seal is gone. Qingye muttered. Qingye felt that the enemy this time was different from the ones in the past. A trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Yihua's mouth, then he immediately retracted his smile and put on an extremely serious expression. Seems like the enemy this time is very, very strong. We're finished. Hearing their husband's tone, Qingye and Donghuang Baiji immediately lost their confidence. They had seen Yihua's strength before. He was simply a god that could kill gods, and right now, he actually gave such an evaluation. Yihua, don't tease us. Just now, it was our fault, you scared us. Qingye squeezed out a smile and said tenderly. She hoped that her husband would take back what he said just now and have a more relaxed expression, as if he was facing a salted fish. Yihua laughed in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face as he said gravely, I don't have any confidence in winning against the enemy this time. Although the seal has already dissipated, you too should still be able to feel the remaining power of the seal. To be able to break the seal while it is still in place, this kind of enemy is very strong. Donghuang Baiji's face collapsed. Yihua, what should we do then? Let's quickly return to Voidless Realm. Donghuang Baiji only wanted to protect her family. Voidless Realm was protected by a barrier, and it was a lot safer for them. However, Yihua said mercilessly, Voidless Realm's barrier won't be able to defend against it. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji immediately felt bad. Looking at the stern expression on their husband's face, he doesn't seem to be joking. What should we do? What should we do? Yihua, let's move to Blue Blaze Planet. Qingye immediately gave a suggestion. Since we can't win against the enemy, then let's not take any risks. After hearing what Qingye said, the corner of Yihua's mouth twitched slightly. You two want to run away so quickly. What's the rush? Right now, the outcome of the battle is still uncertain. Let's see how strong the enemy is first. Yihua didn't plan to go to Blue Blaze Planet. Daddy, I want to go and beat up the bad guy. Donghuang Li raised her fist. Oh Li, don't mess around. Donghuang Baiji gave a stern lecture. Donghuang Li pouted her mouth. I hope that I can grow up quickly. That way, I will be able to go onto the battlefield and help Daddy out. The painting that floated out from the coffin appeared in the eyes of tens of thousands of people. Although they didn't know what the painting meant, they still felt that it was very powerful. Suddenly, the person who was fishing in the painting stood up, put down the fishing rod in his hand, then turned his head and looked outside of the painting. With just a simple glance, everyone felt that they were about to stop breathing. This is so terrifying. Just a single glance from the other party possesses such great might. Even Yihua was a bit surprised. The opponent's strength is indeed very strong. Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji had been observing their husband's expression, and their hearts were heavy. In their minds, they couldn't help but think back to Wang Debao and his wife. The tragedy that happened to Wang Debao and his wife was because they met with the powerful me. If I and Yihua also met with a powerful person, doesn't that mean that I will have to walk on the same path as Wang Debao and his wife? Women sure are easy to overthink. Things haven't even happened yet, and they are already thinking about the future. They are simply scaring themselves. With a smile on his face, the man in the painting took out a folding fan and lightly fanned himself. The mountains and rivers in the painting could be seen disappearing, and the painting turned into an ordinary piece of white paper. PFFF. A stream of flames emerged from the painting, and the painting was instantly engulfed by the raging flames and turned into dust. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.